You're probably the most connected person I've ever come across.
It's not about how smart you are, how amazing your product or service are. It's who you know. Money loves trust.
How do you build that trust in relationships?
If you really want to build trust, people are actually quite wise. People feel the BS. If you understand the value of giving without expecting some kind of immediate transaction in return, it opens so many beautiful doors.
If someone is an introvert listening, what would you say to them?
The introverts most of the time are much more successful than the extroverts in building relationships.
It sounds like it's a lot of work.
Takes energy and time, that's for sure. The best connections I've built were during Ramadan.
What are some mistakes that you see people doing?
One mistake by an introduction of yours can ruin your name. You've done something that 95% of people would never do. So maybe give me
I appreciate it.
how you've done it.
You're having me expose my secrets. And this has worked very recently, almost at 100% success rate. All right, Yulia, I don't usually start this way, but what is it that you do exactly?
Well, I'm the founder and the president of the European Women Association. That's an international NGO with headquarters in Brussels in Belgium. Our main task is to empower women economically, and we do that through collaborations with the governments most of the time.
There's a lot to digest from that sentence. Okay, first of all, can you break down a little bit more for someone who doesn't have an understanding of what this political scene, it's not political, but involvement with different governmental entities looks like? So what exactly does that mean?
Well, most of the governments have certain objective goals, 2030 vision as an example, and they include certain ESG goals. And what we do, we study them and we propose a solution for a certain challenge they're facing. For example, in Europe, we work with the European Commission, where we mainly focus on STEM projects or digitalization projects for female founders, as an example. In the UAE, we work with the Ministry of Economy to get more women funded in the tech industry, or we work with other NGOs like Emirates Foundation on the financial literacy of the nation.
ESG is what exactly? For those who don't know?
So it's about sustainability goals.
Sustainability.
Yeah, and sustainability goals are quite broad. And the United Nations has a certain list of them. And depending on the country, you can then focus on certain ones. And most women are often in the top 5 of them when it comes to the vision of the country. And this is where you can actually understand better what is the lack or what is the gap. Often, sometimes it's the payment gap. Sometimes in the UAE, for example, they're focusing on getting more women into private sector. And this is where we'll be focusing on our initiatives, how to get more women into private sector.
For someone just listening, especially how casual it is that you mentioned these topics, they would imagine that you were maybe born into a diplomatic family and that's how, that was the beginning of your career. But your career began in the finance or banking industry, right?
Yeah.
So what was it like leaving a job that I imagine you were doing quite well in? And what was the stage after leaving the job?
That's a big question. Honestly, it's been a scary journey from the beginning till now, I think. It's not as easy as it looks like on Instagram or LinkedIn page. I come indeed from investment banking. I was good at it. And I think the reason I was good at it is because I love people. And money loves trust. And so at the end, I was the youngest in my team. I worked in Geneva, Luxembourg, and Brussels. And sometimes you get lucky to be at the right place, at the right time, with the right people. And I learned a lot from investment banking. And what I learned is actually more about importance of connection, importance of trust, importance of follow-up, so that people would trust their money, their wealth into you. Because at the end, when you're choosing a bank, or you're not really choosing the bank, you're choosing not the person who will manage your funds, who you can trust, who you can call any time of the day and get a follow-up. And you want them to be honest. So I think banking and honesty hasn't always been the case. And as you maybe remember, or not, you're much younger than me, 2009, we had the financial crisis when I left investment banking. I remember looking in the mirror and saying to myself, I'm leaving the industry because I felt I couldn't be honest with my clients because my bank wasn't honest with me or the market at that time. So I had this crazy idea. I remember I was standing in with my box of papers in the elevator, and Stefan, who used to be my CEO, he told me, Yulia, you know what? You've been actually a terrible employee. I was like, Stefan, how? I have the best reviews. Like, what are you talking about? And he said, no, Han, you are a born entrepreneur. You're not a follower. So use this opportunity to set up your own business. or come work with me in the family office in Luxembourg. I said, well, great opportunity. Let's try that out. And that gentleman was the reason why I said, why not? I'll be free, I'll be rich, and I'll do whatever I want. This is how I understood entrepreneurship, which wasn't the reality. In the reality, I worked double the hours for less of money. But again, amazing journey, amazing hard way of learning things, because suddenly you are responsible for your own, bills, and you cannot go and complain to HR. So you have to create your own opportunities. And this is where we come back to relationships and trust. This is where opportunities come from.
When I introduce you to people or talk about you to people, I usually say you're probably the most connected person I've ever come across. And coming from someone like myself who spends 50% of his day doing outreach, people are like, oh, really? And now that we're talking, I just wonder, where was the impulse to pursue this love for building relationships? Was it because, let me backtrack. So a lot of people work in the private banking or investment banking industries, and few of them pursue the track that you've pursued, the one that really depends on building and nurturing really important relationships. So was it this background alone, or was it the family office's experience as well that both cultivated this feeling that, you know what, there's so much more that I can do based on nurturing real relationships?
I think it goes actually much at a younger age. So my mom loved people. My mom was a natural connector. She did it like it was in her DNA, and everybody loved her. Somehow she could connect from a janitor to the CEO to the president of the country, even in Ukraine at that time. And I was just wondering, like, how does she do that? And the way that she genuinely cared. And I think this is what you see when you grow up. My dad, he was the opposite of that. He was all by himself. He used to hunt in Siberia. I wouldn't see him for 6 months in a year. And I think seeing my mom connecting generally to people and the feedback she was getting from them, I think that inspired me in a way to try out the same. And then I ended up realizing that everything in life is psychology. So I have hundreds of books in Belgium on psychology, on NLP, on history, you name it, where you actually understand that sales, marketing, whatever, it's all about psychology. So I had I think decade of my life that I private time would invest in reading and understanding psychology better, doing different courses, flying to United States, and just learning and understand how do people think out, how do they work, how the mind makes certain decisions, and making sure I can add value to that and at the end benefit professionally from that. So it's been and then of course banking helps. Banking helps you to understand because money needs trust. So how do I build genuine trust and connection on the long term? And of course, exiting banking, going into building my own company, it still exists, by the way. It's called Business Bridge International, BBI. And Business Bridge was about building bridges. And my mom, I remember we did the first trade mission from Belgium to Ukraine with our crown prince at that time, Philippe, who's the king now. And I was actually reaching out to the delegation asking, and how was it successful for you? And they would say, no, not really. And when I dig deeper why they couldn't build or expand their businesses, it was often because they didn't understand the culture or the language. And so you really needed somebody who could build that bridge. And that's how it started with one trade mission and ended up into an international NGO a decade later.
I think I'm going to focus on a very important point now, which is how do you build that trust in relationships? We live at a time where everything is moving quickly. People are looking for the quick buck, for the transactional interaction, and just thinking, how can I benefit myself first? And then I'll think of other people. But obviously trust isn't built that way. Coming from the banking sector, what conclusion did you come with in terms of this is how I build trust with people? And how did you carry this out to building more relationships outside of the sector into the NGO space and other initiatives that you do?
I would go back to, I have certain beliefs. I have certain spiritual guidance that I follow, that I learned from my mom. And if you really want to build trust, people are actually quite wise. people feel the BS. They scan through it. So if you genuinely connect and you start giving first without expecting some kind of immediate transaction in return, this is when the trust starts to be built. And sometimes it comes down to little things. When I connect with somebody, I would ask them about their family situation, their kids, and I try to build a rapport. Like, oh, I'm a mom too. Oh, you've got that dog? Oh, I used to have that same kind of dog. Oh, by the way. And people actually don't care that much about the numbers and the business. It's they're missing the genuine connection in this very fast transactional world. Dubai, for example, fast pace. People don't take time to connect. People want to see results now. And then if somebody like yourself, for example, reaches out, follows up, cares, genuinely cares, immediately you stand out. And this is the basis. It would be little things. For example, a friend of mine in Germany, she bought herself a dog and she really cared about the dog. I would send a little basket with some toys for the dog. She's like, nobody did it for me. Years later, she would introduce me to somebody in Saudi that will make a big influence in my business at that time. So just these little actions of love and well, care, people do feel and remember, and you do stand out. So I think that's where we should start, by genuinely care.
I think this is really important because when someone listens to this, especially if they're starting out or they're not really in a privileged position where they can give something life-changing.
But that's the thing. If you understand the value of giving, it opens so many beautiful doors. Like you said, you give some attention and care and love, just little message. Automatically, they want to give something back because they felt that you cared. And I think this is how you build this rapport. This is how you build a relationship, by giving first. And unfortunately, when it comes to networking and building your business in the beginning, especially when you're hungry and eager, you forget about giving because you think you have nothing to give. But actually you do. How cheesy it may sound, we all at the end want to be loved. And when people feel the love and care, automatically they want to reconnect to that feeling. And that feeling is you. And so business is a result of that care initially. And that's the thing that we are lacking sometimes, that we think, okay, I'll meet, exchange business cards, and let's see, and in a week time, I'll send a pitch deck or whatever.
Exactly.
And they're like, who are you? You know how many pitch decks I'm receiving on a weekly basis? Like, I don't even remember you. And there is one book actually that changed my life about that. It's by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And one of the rules there, and I used it, and I still use, by the way, is when I connect to people, I let them speak and talk about what they care. I would never pitch or sell something. I would follow up on the thing that they cared about and build that relationship. Takes energy and time, that's for sure. But then it ends up often in relevant introductions because they trust you, and they lend their trust by introducing you to somebody else who is influential for your business. So read these basic books, you will realize that at the end, we want to be seen and heard and loved and understood. And this is where the trust is coming out from. Of course, you have to be genuine. This is the basis. If your intentions are not ethical or good, people feel that as well. Or you'll have maybe one deal and then you're burned.
That's it.
But in this region, it doesn't work. In the Middle East, in GCC, or in UAE particularly, people are quite tribal, especially the locals. They value opinion about others pretty much, especially of their leadership. So your name should be mentioned in the right rooms in the right way when you're not there. And that means you have to do a lot of homework and investments of your time before that happens.
Just a quick note on that book. This was a life-changing book for me.
Really?
Absolutely. It's something I read back when I was in university.
Yeah.
I came across it online. I was just reviewing or searching for books that I should start reading as someone who wants to get involved. And it was one of the highest reviewed ones. And when I read it, it had such a profound impact that if someone tells me, hey, I'm trying to lose weight, is there a book I should read? And I'll tell them How to Win Friends and Influence People. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, never mind, sorry. It's just, I love the book so much. It's the first one that comes to mind, and I always suggest it to people. So much to take from that book.
Yeah.
But on this point that you mentioned, one of the strategies I started following in networking events, quote unquote, is I almost approach it with such a personal or at such a personal angle, it feels refreshing to people.
True.
Maybe I'll ask them about the industry they're in, just because I can maybe then tailor the questions. But then quickly, I just try and find a way of how do I ask this person questions so that it shows that I genuinely care about them.
Yeah.
And I'll ask you about your strategy in networking events. Mine is a one-to-one. I don't care about the masses. I'm not trying to get everyone's business card or everyone's contact information. As a result, and this has worked very recently, almost at 100% success rate. After every networking event, I am invited by a person way ahead of me in life who has done incredible things to a very personal environment, dinner or lunch. So in one case, it was a gentleman and his wife. He wanted to introduce me to his wife. And in another case, someone invited me to their house, which I took as, you know what? If I was a matter expert on this guy's industry, I would have never made it into his home. And just because, as you said, just trying to really, really care about someone, it goes a long way. So on this point, what's your take on networking events? Someone listening now and they said, you know what, I want to make the change. I want to be like Yulia and I want to just completely transform my life. Should I just go to every networking event that I hear about? How can I be selective? What's your take about networking events generally?
Networking, actually, it's an important skill you have to learn. It will change or break your life in a way if you lack the right access, because networking is about access. It's not about you selling your product. It's about meeting the relevant people in your industry or the industry you want to get into. My way on it. So I waste a lot of hours and nights on networking, honestly saying. Like, I thought like I should know everyone and connect to everyone. And then I wouldn't have the right time or enough time to follow up on that. Or I would feel like a waste of my time. I should have stayed with my kids instead of having this, cheap wine and cheese somewhere in a dusty room in a hotel. So I changed this strategy about a decade ago. I would actually research where I'm going to. So first of all, identify your target audience. Like, who are you looking out for? People don't get it. Like, they just go out randomly networking, wasting their business cards. Like, understand where your decision makers are, investors are, or potential clients are, first of all. And you'll, like, probably 70% of these networking events and nights you will be able to eliminate. Secondly, make sure you have a list or you understand who's coming. Most of the decent networking events have a registration page. You can reach out and say, okay, I don't need their contact numbers due to GDPR, but I need to understand the companies and the names. So go out, go on LinkedIn, check them, connect, and like, I'm looking forward to connect to you in person tonight. Then you'll understand, like, maybe out of 120 people, your target is to connect to 15. They are the ones who have the power to decide or help you or connect you to other right people. And the beauty of LinkedIn, you can also see to whom are they connected. And maybe by doing better homework, you understand who. I just need to connect to that one person. And he's the door opener. And often it's the person who's organizing the event that you should focus on, not always the guests. Connect to that person. Build the trust. It takes time. And you'll see he will advise you. Speak to this person. Connect to them. Speak to his wife. Speak about the children. He just had a baby. That kind of information truly matters to the people you're meeting. And then you gather, often you'll get business cards. I'll have always a pen with me. I'll write down like stuff like funny mustache or red dress or white costume. So it helps me remember. And if the connection really was great, it's so easy. I have a QR code on my screensaver of my WhatsApp number. And in this region, it's not really done in Europe, but here most of the businesses is done on WhatsApp. I'll connect on WhatsApp. I'll make a selfie. I was like, it was great chatting to you. Good luck with whatever launch of the company, a new brand, or congratulations on the baby. Whatever we had as a conversation. Again, nothing about business. I'm not asking for a referral, money, project, whatever. I'm generally connecting. Then I make notes. When I save the person's contact, I'll have like at the end of your contacts, you can write stuff down like, okay, has a German Shepherd as a dog as well, or loves Italy, loves this kind of wine, or that's his birth. Like, you try to get out that information and you follow up. That's the thing. Nobody's following up nowadays. Everybody's running, trying to get another opportunity fast. But this is not how it's working. If you would invest your time sort of connecting to new people, building trust and relationship with the relevant ones that you already connected to, I mean, the world is yours. It's really as simple as that is. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen.
I want to read you a statistic because I can imagine someone's listening at the moment and they said, you know, Yulia, what you said is true. I agree. It's just, I don't need it. Maybe they feel like they're intelligent enough or too intelligent, let's say, or their product is so good, the world will come knocking at that person's door. And I just want to read a couple of statistics. According to RMIT, 70% of jobs are not advertised. And then as of 2024, Deloitte sourced more than 49% of new candidates via their referral program. You have Salesforce gives its staff members more than $5.5 million in referral incentives. So this applies to an individual who's trying to look for a new job or to change industries. But I think it sheds light on much more important areas in life that are difficult to maybe calculate the statistics on, where your next opportunity is a conversation away.
Yeah.
It's rarely through a job application. It's rarely through these events that are like, we had these in university. All the top companies would come and we would all stand in very long lines under the sun with our resumes printed out. And then I swear, I remember I had this moment. I said, I know the guy in front of me and the guy behind me, they're both in my class. And I can assure you they have the exact same resume.
Sure.
So why would I be chosen? Yeah, I'm confident in myself and I would like to think I'm a standout person, but in a line of hundreds of people, how can I stand out?
I think you're completely right. It's all about building your social capital first. We are too much focused on building like the real money on the account, but you don't understand the value. Your personal value is built through social capital by giving, connecting, building trust. And you can exchange that social capital when you're looking for a job, investor, or another opportunity. You're expanding your business. Again, where do you go? You're not going on Google. You're not doing the cold calling. You are checking with people you trust and know. If I'll be looking for a new, PA, I won't go through thousands of applications. I'll call a few of my friends and I'll ask for referral. And it's with everything. The same with investments, the same with founders. At the end, it's about the social capital and the trust you have built over the years. And so I think this is where it's not easy. I think the reason why we don't do that is because it's not easy. It takes a lot of your time. But the opportunity, as you said, it's often, I think shared recently, I was smoking a shisha with a friend of mine from here in Dubai. It's like, Yulia, after 2 hours of conversation, family, kids, and travel, I said, yeah, I'm moving here. My kids, I'm looking for a school. Just have a general, normal conversation. And I was like, what's happening with you? Oh, I'm like, for the 3 years I'm in a row, I'm struggling to source certain engines in Europe. And I really need that for leasing purposes. Like, well, it's not my, expertise, but I know a guy who's the Minister of Transportation in Europe. Let me give him a call. So we just give him a call, put him on speed dial. It's like, I need this type of engines. And it's like, sure, we've got that. It's like, okay, we need 12. Is it possible? Maybe 6 we can start with. So the guy, a friend of mine, is like, impossible. I've been struggling for 3 years. How? I was like, well, because I've built social capital with the minister in Europe. So he has a trust that if I make an introduction, it's a reliable business partner. And I think this is something where you have to invest more time in, making sure you are surrounded by the right people, you are in the right rooms with people who are better than you are. This is the thing. Our ego loves to be the best of the room. I know it is like all the compliments, bring it on. But in reality, you are in the wrong room if that's happening. You should be there where you can learn from. On a monthly basis, I'm very grateful to be invited to the residency of our Belgian ambassador as I sit on the Benelux Business Council board. And the meetings we have there, the conversations are in a very cozy 10, 15 people environment, people from different industries. And things I'm learning, it's just massive. And often it's just connecting the dots. I hear a story or your need and know somebody who could help you. That's it. This is how I've built my social capital. I'm not asking anything in return. Monday, maybe I'll need their advice or introduction or referral. And another thing, it's important who introduces you. Not just randomly. I know people, I can sometimes go directly to a certain decision maker. And in certain cultures, even more than others, if it's who's introducing me, how is that person positioned in this social ladder? And this is, sometimes you have to be more patient. Reach out to that person and ask for introduction to your point of contact. And this is where you build again your trust. Immediately 50% is on your side. It's just the other 50 you have to deliver. So you can make your life a bit easier by strategically asking the right people to introduce you to the potential opportunity.
Listening to you, it sounds like it's a lot of work. And I can imagine someone listening to our conversation saying, you know what, I'm about to close this conversation. It's too much for me. It's okay. I don't have to know everyone. And you can mention the statistics. You can tell me you're facilitating engine sales. But maybe one of the, let's say, objections is I'm an introvert. Even if I wanted to, even if I like what you're saying, I just don't have it in me. But someone like yourself has met so many people, and not everyone is necessarily a social butterfly, right? No. So if someone is an introvert listening to this, what would you say to them?
Well, even for them, it's more important to focus on the depth of the relationship rather to go out and connect to random people. The introverts most of the time are much more successful than the extroverts in building relationships because it costs them too much energy to go out there and reconnect to new ones. They rather stick to you because they know you and trust you. And I think you need to learn how to leverage these few relationships you have because we are all interconnected. I mean, I think there are some statistics that we are connected by the 5 or 7 people, the whole world. So that one person can be your key to many others and they can do the work for you. Just make it easy for them. Meaning, if you don't want to yourself go out and network and meet new people, ask the person that you already know, like, can you please introduce me? I need that connection. I need that opportunity. And this is how you introduce me. This is the paragraph you just forward to them. This is my number. This is how they can reach out to me. So you can make it much more easier for others to do a bit of networking for you if you hate networking. So, and another thing that I started to do this year, I'm in December last year, I made a list of these key people. You would think that you need thousands of contacts. And if you look at my LinkedIn, I think 30,000. It doesn't mean I know all of them or I have time actually to invest in the follow-up. I don't. And the more I'm connected, the less time actually I have to build the relationships. So what I done is in December, I was thinking to whom I should send the Happy New Year message. And I often do it personally with a name or an audio message so they feel that I really care again. And I realized I have like 8, 9 people on that list who are the keys to the world. I don't need to invest my time building relationships with thousands of them, just up to 10. That means I'd like to know more about them. If I don't know when it's their birthday, I'll double check with their wife or the husband. I'll give them a call. So what I've done, December, January, I've been talking to these people. How are you? What's happening? How can I serve? How can I help? And you'll be surprised how like, oh yes, actually I'm expanding my business, or I am fundraising, or I'm retiring. Okay, tell me more about that. And again, you build your social capital by bringing value to these, let's say 10 people, which are the key to the rest.
It sounds like everyone can develop their own style, especially when people are more extroverted or more introverted than others. And you decide how you want to do it, right? It could be over something that you're comfortable doing, like a coffee. Yeah. Or if you're someone who likes to be around others, there could be a networking event. So it's not as black and white as people might think of it. But on this point of, I'm going to look at my contact list and I'm going to identify 8 to 10 people, let's say. I understand this perspective because, I mean, when you're doing business and those relationships are both business and personal, it just makes sense. Time is a limited resource. You would love to have coffee with absolutely everyone you're connected to, 30,000, but it's not physically possible. But what do you think of the argument that says, just by doing that, you're now being less authentic about the relationship? You're seeking to deepen your relationship with these people because of their means or because of their access or because of whatever. How do you maintain authenticity with this approach?
I think you have to, first of all, admit everything is give and take in life. And if you give, I wonder, okay, where is the balance? As you rightly said, I cannot have a coffee with 30,000 contacts. If I have to invest my time, which is for me now, the older I become, the much more valuable it becomes. I want to do it meaningfully. Meaning these 10 people, often, most of the time, on my personal list, they are great people. They're great human beings. I cannot fake the relationship if these people's values don't match mine. So initially, we are connected on human values, on certain things that are important to us. So deepening this relationship stays authentic because I genuinely care about your business, about your family, about whatever your religion, as an example. So we've built a certain relation that's, for me, it's important to have this friendship base. It's not always needed, I think, but that's my style. Most of the business partners are good friends of mine as well, because this is how I believe in this long-term relationship, not being transactional, because it goes both ways. If I feel that the person is faking the relationship by sending me kind messages, and I've got few of them, I won't invest my time. So it's about being efficient in a way as well. I'm a mom. I've got 2 kids. I'm moving now to the UAE with the whole family. So it takes a lot of my nerve and energy and time. So if I invest time, it's because I really, really like you as a person. I care about you. And if the business comes out, great. If it doesn't, well, so be it. But the basics should be authentic.
I completely agree. One of the experiences I experienced recently. I met someone at a networking event, and this was the gentleman who invited me over to his house.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and I shared with him a personal experience that revolved around the value of respect and how, for me, it's one of the boundaries that I really like to maintain. And I remember his reaction as I shared with him this experience. He leaned back on his chair and he said, I don't remember the last time I had a conversation where this was a topic that came up and I resonated with it so closely. And we continued talking about it, and we spoke about other values that we both shared. And I remember that later that day, I met with someone else, and I told him I had a great conversation with this very esteemed businessman. It went really well, and they said, "Oh, really? So, what kind of business can we expect between you guys?" And I said, "Actually, there was literally zero business discussions in that conversation. It was so deep on a personal level, and there was such a natural flow between us. It would have been extremely disruptive and unnatural of me to say, okay, you know what? Hold, pause. Can we talk about business now?" Because it wasn't a business meeting. It was lunch at home.
And I think there you have to understand the culture as well. In some cultures, you are expected to build that first. You go to US, it won't be understood. You go to Europe, it's a bit in between. Here in this region, what I've learned, the best connections I've built, genuine ones, were during Ramadan. When all Europeans leave, this is when you stay. This is where you go to their houses, share the meal with the family. You don't speak about business. But after Ramadan, if you need something, the door is open. Because they're so emotionally intelligent in the region. Because it's such a mix of cultures, religions. You almost have to have sixth sense to understand the person. So it feels like they really scan you, understand you on a personal level, and the emotional intelligence is so high. So if you fit in their cultural environment and understand and respect that, that's what you're getting back. Opportunities, respect, and friendship.
This is, it's amazing to see the parallels between how you approach it and how I approach it. This is why for me it's tricky to leave Dubai during the summer. Because in summer, a lot of people are traveling, but a lot of people are staying.
Yeah.
And those who are staying, whether they are C-level executives, business owners, etc., they have less business volume in summer, and they're more likely to entertain new conversations, different conversations, follow-ups. The logistics of organizing a meeting with someone becomes so much easier during that time. And for me, I think of summer as this is where I deepen the business relationship or I expand my contacts based on the objectives or based on my industry or so forth. And I think it's overlooked by a lot of people because oftentimes Ramadan is associated with the season of fasting. So maybe some people are exhausted, they're tired.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, I'm not sure if Ramadan's the right time. Summer, it's too hot. I need a break. I need to leave. And it's an investment.
Oh, yeah.
Something, you're investing time on the expense of something else. But if you're doing it with people you enjoy meeting, people you share values with, it's actually extremely fun.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I genuinely enjoy it. Even if my entire day is just following up with certain people over breakfast, lunch, dinner, I feel like this was an incredible day.
I think you're completely right. It's the hustle mentality of, okay, actually use the opportunity when everybody is leaving. I mean, it's more for you, more time, more attention. Great idea. I do follow you on that. Same with Ramadan. But when it comes to Ramadan, I don't know, you can feel it in the air. There is something different. There is this sense of giving, connecting. It's a genuine. I'm not a religious person, but when I'm in that time of period, like I look forward to Ramadan now. I'll be working because we're working on a large project right now, but I know it will be a hard time for us. But at the same time, I know the moments, the sharing of the meals, the conversations are so real and authentic. And the locals are also looking forward to slow down because the business periods are so short and squeezed in, especially in Dubai. So many events are happening, so many networking, and people have a very short attention span. So even if they connect and you've been very authentic and whatever we just discussed, it's not a guarantee because they are just overflowing with opportunities. So it's important then to use the summer, Ramadan, Christmas time to build real friendship. And you don't need that many. That's the thing. It looks exhausting if you would do that with 30,000, even 100 people. But if you will focus on like 10 or key people, it's beautiful, it's fun, it's genuine, you really build something that we all need, real friendship. And especially here in the UAE, that we have like 90% of Dubai expats. We are all a bit lonely and lost, and our family isn't here. And this is when this kind of relation, friendship, business or not business, doesn't matter, when they're built, you tend to stick together because you're a guest and here in this country, and you want to to hold on people who are real and authentic and will reach out to you if they need help or vice versa.
While you were talking, I was thinking it's admirable of you that you still actively reach out, maintain those relationships, although you've done so much in your career where a lot of people are trying to get access to you. You've been in situations where you're either an investor, board member, advisor, or you have access to investors. So being someone who is constantly on the other end of receiving these messages, and people want to reach out to you, how can someone stand out, not just by reaching out to Yulia, but if they would like to reach out to someone who's a key figure in that industry? What are some mistakes that you see people doing when they do this outreach, whether it's in person, through LinkedIn, through an email? Maybe someone sent them your number and they're like, oh, okay, I got Yulia's number.
Yeah. And it's a frustrating one, honestly. I'm quite active on LinkedIn, not really Instagram. And I receive daily messages. I am fundraising, oh, I need this, so introduce me to that person. And I remember 20 years ago, I would have easily made the introduction because it's like, what the heck, right? But now I realized the value of your network, and you have to cherish it and protect it because it's so easily burned. One mistake by an introduction of yours can ruin your name. Again, culturally, in some countries like US, it's less sensitive than in the Middle East. But here I've learned, and I made my mistakes by introducing people. The intentions were right, but they'd done something unethical, and that reflected badly on me. And people are forgiving in general, but don't do it twice. All right. So do your own due diligence. And of course, I'm not in the business of due diligence. So if somebody reaches out to me, can you introduce me to that person? Why? Like, I don't know you. I don't know why? So it's important, again, invest your time. Like, you're a great example of that. We've met in Qatar at the airplane. We were just sitting together, had a short chat, but you followed up. You were not pushy, and you didn't give up for over a year to us sitting here. And the connection was very genuine. And then for me, it was easy to introduce you to other people. And I'm happy you're building something beautiful with them, because
you.
that's the thing. It takes time, and we are not willing to invest time. So I think it's more about you, in this case, sharing how you've done it, reaching out to me and following up and making sure we have this new relationship being built. You've done something that 95% of people would never do. So maybe give me
I appreciate it.
how you've done it. Is it strategically? Is it consciously? Or is it just the way you
Very
operate?
consciously. Yeah. I reach out to a lot of people.
Mm.
Part of it is a numbers game.
Yeah.
For example, I need guests for a podcast. Obviously, I have to be strategic about who I invite, but it has to be a lot of people. Because some people are not responsive, some people are busy, some people reply and they want more information. So in your case, I had already spoken to you.
Yeah.
The interest was there and the curiosity was there in terms of what you do. And I realize you're someone who travels a lot. You mentioned this in passing. So I'm taking mental notes about, okay, how do I reach out? When do I reach out? How do I reach out? One of the things that I realized was you were very specific on the periods of time when you were busy. And I'm best friends with my calendar.
Yeah.
So you would say, hey, traveling for 2 weeks in Belgium at the moment, talk to you when I'm back. I was like, it's no offense to me, but you're not going to remember that you want to talk to me, because when you're back in Dubai, now you have 50 million other things that you want to do. So instead, I'm going to set a reminder in 2 weeks. Not on the day that you're back, because you sometimes mention, hey, back in 2 Wednesdays. No,
Yeah.
I'm not going to message you when you're on the flight.
On the flight, yeah.
So if you're arriving on a Wednesday, it's probably going to be Friday afternoon, Friday morning, weekend, when things are a little bit laid back. And then I text, hey, Yulia, just wanted to see, welcome back to Dubai. Hope the trip was smooth. Just wanted to see when you'd be available for that catch up. Hey, would love to. Something came up, had to travel back to whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, no worries. When will you be back?
Yeah. But the thing, you followed up. You got your reminders, you got your calendar.
I have to.
And then it took a year to sit here. And I think that's the key. People don't follow up.
And you know what? You mentioned this,
Yeah.
and I've heard this piece of advice, which I think is really important, which is think of it like a balance. And you said it perfectly. It's a give and take. So if at the get-go, I'm trying to take, I have zero balance. So I'm now in the negative, right? Yeah, we met on the airplane, but you meet a lot of people on airplanes. So now I want to give by just saying, hey, I acknowledge you're busy. So I'm not going to be the kind of guy who says, hey, listen, this is like my 5th message. No, I mean, who am I to do this, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who I'm reaching out to. It's just that attitude is a very taking attitude. It's not like we agreed we're going to do something and then, no. And even if plans change, it's like, oh, sure. We'll reschedule.
And I think that's also an interesting one. For example, as you were saying, I'm looking for people for the podcast. Again, having the right people. I mean, through me, you're easy to get on a podcast. I mean, on any person, because we've built trust, and I'm happy to share other guests and other contents that I think that could be a great story that should be mentioned, right? So you don't have to, it's much more smart and much more efficient than going through cold calling on LinkedIn or messaging. Actually, Yulia, can you introduce me to that person? Or like I spoke about it, of course they would come because like we've been here on the podcast. So that's a great example. Invest in the relationship already and through them get to the next level instead of going and cold calling all the time.
You're having me expose my secrets. So actually, just because the audience doesn't know this, you were the person who introduced me to Timur, who I had a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
And what I do at the end of every episode, so we film and each of us, I tell you thank you in person. And then I go home. And then as soon as I get to my phone, hey, Yulia, just once again, it was great having you over. Podcast was great. Thank you for making it out here. I understand you had to come from Abu Dhabi. Maybe the parking was tricky, whatever. So what you would say, a lot of people say, thank you for having me. Great podcast, great conversation. Let me know if I could help with anything.
Yeah, true.
Because they're like, oh, okay. I mean, it's such a nice message. I might as well just throw it out there. So they do it. I'm like, oh, appreciate it. I mean, there's nothing now.
So listen, I do need something.
Exactly.
Here it comes.
Exactly. So what I do is I say, oh, no, I mean, there's nothing really. But if you have any friends who are working on something exciting and are awesome storytellers, I'd really appreciate an introduction.
You see.
I leave it there.
Right.
Every person has gotten back to me with at least one recommendation.
That's what I'm telling you. I think this is the key of sales. I mean, I come from sales background, and this is what we've been learning. Like, if you have a happy customer, make sure he gives you at least 5 other of his close contacts that they trust. And this is the way for you to get more business. I mean, it's podcast, it doesn't matter what it is. But this is the easiest and the coolest way to network. It's just take a happy friend, a client, whoever, and reach out to his network through him.
It has worked without failure.
Yeah.
I'm curious, genuinely, because actually in our conversations, we have never reached this point, which is the contacts. You mentioned you have so many contacts within the space of, I keep mislabeling them, so bear with me.
Yeah.
So contacts who work in government in some sort of capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, those people are probably the people who are on the receiving end of so many messages and requests.
Yeah.
But you have built such a strong relationship with so many of them. And I know people listening here have ideas for businesses that could really empower and transform governments through processes, products, projects, whatever it may be. And they're just thinking, I wish I could just know this one person here. I wish I could build the relationship with this government there. So for someone starting from that position, what would you tell them? How can they navigate that space to effectively build a relationship with the meaningful entities in the government?
Don't forget, people at the government are also just people like you and me with their own challenges and very busy agenda, especially here in the UAE. And there are different ways. Again, I do believe in who introduces you to them is important. The track record you had is important. That means don't come with an idea, but come with something that already works. If you're pitching whatever project or something impactful for the country, prove that first. Don't come pitching like most of the people do. All right. Invest, depends on the leadership again, but I've seen if you invest in this country, in your company, you invest time and resources, they tend to hear you better than if you just come and go and trying to benefit from the system here. So that again takes time. But don't forget our people. And I won't call names, but I had this beautiful friendship being built with a person. We just discussed poetry on just after the offices pumped up to each other in the lobby. I said, "Oh, let's have a coffee. Tell me more. What are you passionate about?" Like, I don't speak about work. And that person sat there and is like, "What do you need?" It's like, "Nothing. I just want to know who you are as a person." Like, why? It's like, because I care. And we've been working like for a while now. I just want to know who you are. And it's like, I love poetry. And we had like, I'm a big fan of Rumi. So, or Omar Khayyam. And we've been discussing for hours poetry. That's it. But that was a great basis for a very beautiful relationship later on. And recommendation of me and my work to Abu Dhabi. And I think that's, again, we come back to care. It takes time. It's not as straightforward. And I think understanding psychology helps. Understanding what makes people happy or unhappy, and being that person to bring value first and not ask. It's very refreshing nowadays.
You've mentioned your interest and the importance of psychology multiple times, and I also noted something about you. You're very intentional with your body language, the eye contact, the gestures, the ums, the ahs, and very, very. I mean, it's masterclass. As a person who has an appreciation for those things, I wasn't born with them. I watched endless hours of YouTube breaking down those skills.
Oh my dear, me too, trust me.
I read books, multiple. I literally have a book called How to Talk to Anyone. It's on my bookshelf. And it has one-liners of, when you see someone in this setting, this is a good conversation starter. When you see, and it's a book on that. For psychology and body language, I can imagine body language also plays an important role in building these relationships. You don't want to appear awkward.
Yeah.
For you, was it natural, or was it something you acquired over the time by learning from other people, or was it just sitting down and doing your research behind the scenes?
I think it was both. First of all, I'm an extrovert by nature, so it's been a bit easier. Like my husband, he's an introvert. He hates any social interactions. He's been reading books unsuccessfully. So I think it has to be in you naturally. But again, I've been to multiple trainings on body language, public speaking, trainings, you name it, because I really wanted to master it. Because I understood it's not about how smart you are, how amazing your product or service are. It's who you know at the end and how they speak about you when you're not there. Even more important. And so body language is the rapport. I believe all of us should study it to connect and being intentional about that, use it for the great good, not to misuse it.
Manipulation.
I think that's a tricky one. There is a book I've been reading like a few times. And some of my friends like it's so unethical to even read it.
I know which one it is.
You know?
I guess.
Tell me.
For the 8 Laws of Power.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
I love that book because at the end I learned so much about history. And it's on the edge, like it's about manipulation. But at the same time, you can recognize manipulation by reading that book.
Absolutely.
So dive into psychology. I'm telling you, that's the key. That's the key. And I've got so many friends here also in Dubai who are so well connected, but are not using it the proper way. And they are scattered all over different dinners and networking events and with no result. So again, it helps you to refocus. So read that book again. For those who haven't read it, read that book.
Funny story is when I first read it, I'm like, oh my God, this book is so poisonous.
It's so evil, right?
Yeah. I remember I filmed a video on TikTok. I'm like, if there's one book you should never buy or read, it's this one. And it ended up getting so many views and people bought it and like, okay. I knew that was going to be a counter effect, but it's incredible.
It's incredible. I think, again, it gives you better understanding of how human beings are. And there is no right or wrong. It's how you use the knowledge or the powers you develop. So please use it for the right thing. I was brought up in a very spiritual way. So I really believe if I harm, I will get it 10 times harder back. So please be mindful. Don't harm other people with the talents you have or develop or the skills you have. So it's a very ethical question away as well.
It's always a questionable book, but a great read nevertheless. I'm also a believer in it's great to know what works and what's good.
Yeah.
But you need to also know what's bad and what's out there, because that book, the reason it's so questionable is because we don't want to believe that people around us have those traits and can behave in those ways and can betray us and can do the harm. And that's why I also am always curious and I ask people about hard times in their lives and challenges if they're building a business or if they're transitioning from one country to another. So in your journey, building these relationships with people, what were some times that were difficult for you? Maybe there was a relationship and you were genuinely invested in, I don't know, maybe there was a betrayal somewhere or you were let down or you were disappointed.
Well, I think hard times do form us. There is this saying that if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. I don't really believe in that. It numbs you down in a way. It doesn't make you strong. It numbs you down. You become insensitive to things. And in the past, I would cry and I would try to explain, this is not correct. This is not how you do it. This is unethical. And I realized, well, not everybody thinks like that, right? Everybody's got their own trauma happening, and the reasons why they do what they do are not often understood by you or me, but that happens. And I think hard times make me more unsensitive to these things, where people would often abuse my network, abuse my relationships, use my name to get somewhere. And then I would hear about that. It doesn't hurt me as it used to. And that's okay. I try to understand why they do it. Maybe they're hungry, desperate, whatever drives them. And just let it be. I'm not trying to prove them wrong or have an open conversation. I just distance myself.
You don't even want to change them.
No. And I used to, 15 years ago, I even had a coaching practice in Belgium, and I wanted to change people. I want to inspire them. And I realized after years that people don't change in general. Only with big trauma maybe it happens, but in general, they don't. So I stopped trying to change or, generally change people. I just accept as they are. And that made my life so much easier. And going back to hard moments, I was just sharing before the podcast. I've been coming to the region for 4.5 years. Easy. 6 months of the time I was here, then in Europe, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi, and UAE mainly. And I thought, like, I'm part of the community, right? I know so many people, I feel home here. Till I decided to completely move, because one of the projects in Abu Dhabi, I said, okay, I need to be here. I cannot do it 50-50. And when I was packing my bags and decided eventually with my husband to sell the house, it was the scariest moment of my life. I realized I'm 41, I'm starting all over again. It's scary as hell. I mean, like, I have so much respect for people in Dubai. Most of them are expats who made that decision. And it's much more scary than you would think. You leave everything behind. Okay, you can go home and fly in 6 hours, you're there. But no, you're actually packing your life in these few suitcases, selling whatever you're not taking with you or giving that away. That was intense. But the moment I landed and I smelled the air, I call it the air of opportunity. I was like, gosh, I'm home. I'm happy because, again, I have somebody to fall back on. So I have my network. I've got my friends. I've got my circle of trust. So I'm not alone. So I think, again, invest in your relationships. Life can happen or change like that, 180 degrees. If you haven't built that safety network of great people around you, that's a very lonely way to go. So I think that's for me now, being here. As you know, I just came from Abu Dhabi. I was driving here. I was like, beautiful. Like, I'm not alone. I'm still not moved in my apartment, but still, it's a beautiful opportunity. The sense of new opportunities, new life, and I think we should do it more often. Make these big jumps and leaps, and it's easier when we have a large international network to do so. But it's like you can live many lives in one life.
I completely relate to that feeling. I remember I was asked just yesterday, I was talking to a younger gentleman, and he said, since you studied in the US and you know people there and your friends work in this company and that company, you're thinking of starting something there. I told him, I mean, maybe, but I've got so much going on here in terms of the people I know and the ideas that are flowing around. It would be a shame to leave this all behind and travel not halfway, fully across the world and just like rebuild for absolutely no reason.
And everybody who's relevant is here. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Everybody's in Dubai or in Abu Dhabi nowadays. So why move?
There's no point whatsoever. Just as we wrap up, I want to ask you a last question, because you are in a lot of very important circles, in very exclusive rooms, and you have been around and seen exceptional people. What are some traits on the top of your head that are common across all these exceptional people that you feel a lot of the audience can be inspired by?
They're very intentional. They're very intentional. I'm not there yet though, but I'm learning. They're very intentional to whom and how they connect. Nothing is randomly. They're prepared and they're ready to move fast if needed. And I think that's something, I'm still trying to integrate in my way of connecting to people. I still tend to really connect on a human level and invest a lot of time on the personal stuff. They are less there. Their time is limited. They don't have 1 hour to sit in a podcast most of the time. But I'm learning a lot from them. The way they communicate, their body language, their what triggers them. I recently had that. I wouldn't say name. So I met a gentleman 6 months ago at the residency of our ambassador. And I connected with his wife very, very much. And I heard that the gentleman, her husband, is quite interesting and influential. But she introduced me to him, but he didn't really care at that moment of what I'm doing. It didn't fit his agenda that night, probably. We exchanged cards, but nothing happened. 6 months later, we're in the same room. And the wife comes like, by the way, you already met Yulia? No, I haven't. And so we have the conversation. And he's, yeah, maybe. I'm sorry. I meet so many people. And then I drop a name of a project I'm working on. He's like, oh, can I write your number down? 2 days later, we're having coffee in Abu Dhabi. And he's like, well, I want to collaborate on this project with you. And it just fitted his more strategic agenda. It was so beautifully to see how he connected the dots on a long term. So he understood by investing or funding a certain initiative of the country, it will strategically benefit his business in 5 to 10 years. I was just mind blown how well, intentionally they are. So again, nothing is for nothing there.
Win-win situation.
A win-win always. Yeah.
Love it. Yulia, you're an extremely inspiring person.
Thank you
Not
so
just
much.
to me,
So are
but
you, by the way.
thank you. But you truly are, for me and for a lot of people listening, even if they don't know you on a personal level. And I think there's a lot of value and a lot of wisdom to take away from this conversation, because a lot of it has to do with us as individuals from within.
Yeah.
You don't have to be born in a certain family
No.
or with X amount of dollars in your bank account. It's just taking that initiative, going out there and genuinely giving out to the world love, attention, interest, and people will be surprised what the world gives back to them. So thank you for sharing your experiences, your wisdom. And I can't imagine where you will be now that you're going to be fully here and just like full force, but I'm excited to see where it is.
No, thank you for the follow-up, not giving
My
up on
pleasure.
me in the last 12 months and having me here. You're doing an amazing job, and please continue doing so.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and this podcast has reassured that my follow-up is worth its time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mohammed.